Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Donovan Boyle. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Innovate Newport. We're so excited to have you here this evening to hear about this important conversation, questions, and I'm looking forward to it. I'd like to welcome our viewers to this forum tonight. You'll be hearing from 8 Middletown Council candidates. Unfortunately, one member was unable to join us tonight due to a last-minute family emergency, Christopher Logan. If he is able to come, he will join us mid-debate, mid-conversation. This forum is a collaboration between the Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce, Involve Newport, League of Women Voters, and Newport This Week. The purpose of the collaboration is to inform the Newport County voters. I would like to point out that the positions held by any one of the collaborators do not represent the viewpoints or opinions of others in the group. It is also important to note that the Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce, the League of Women Voters, and Newport This Week are nonpartisan and do not endorse candidates. The forum recording can be viewed through links to the collaborators' websites and on social media. Tonight's questions have been a combined effort of Involve Newport, the Chamber of Commerce, League of Women Voters, and Newport This Week. We encourage residents to attend or watch the whole series of forums that have taken place. Past forums were held for the Newport City Council at Large and Newport School Committee. And next Thursday, October 20th, is the final forum for the Middletown School Committee candidates to be held here at Innovate Newport and also live virtually. Again, thank you to the candidates for participating this evening. I would now like to take the opportunity to introduce Attorney Robert Silva. Bob is a senior member and founder of Silva, Thomas, Martland, and Offenberg, a law firm based in Middletown. He has practiced law since 1966, and in June 1969, Silva was elected to the Middletown Town Council, serving as president for 7 years of his 15 on the council. Throughout his legal career in time of public service, Silva has been active in numerous organizations, serving as the chairman of the Middletown Economic Advisory Committee, the former president of the Portuguese Discovery Monument Foundation, and as a Middletown municipal judge. He has served on various committees in several civic and community organizations, and tonight he joins us as our esteemed moderator of this forum. Please welcome Bob Silva.
Thank you, Erin. I'm a little embarrassed with all of that. I forgot about it. But it's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to serve Middletown in an elected capacity. And I was a moderator for this very important event and presentation. I know what it takes and what it doesn't take to be in the Middletown Town Council and run for public office. So I'd like this moment to shout out to all of you. Thank you so much. It's not an easy decision. It takes a lot of personal time, family time, and we appreciate everything that you do on the council. So good luck. As moderator, I am going to welcome everyone to the Innovate Newport facility and third candidate forum for 2022 election season. Tonight, we're pleased to welcome the candidates for seats on the Middletown Town Council. And as an individual who's been involved in public service, I'm looking forward to hearing the goals and visions of these candidates just as much as all of us. There are 9 candidates running for the 7 seats. Not everyone is present tonight, as Erin indicated. Chris Logan is with a little bit of a family issue, taking one of his children to the hospital. He'd like to be here, but if I know what emergency rooms are like, he's not going to make it tonight. He'll never get out on time. The organizers of this event have prepared the questions, and the questions are on issues of development, short-term rentals, regionalization, and climate. I'm just going to read the questions and organize things and hope we can move along quickly. But questions have been formulated and have been agreed to by the committee and the organizers of this event. The candidates for Middletown Town Council in the order in which they will appear on the ballot November 8th are Tom Welch, Peter Connerton, Dennis Turano, Antone Viveiros, Theresa Santos, Emily Tessier, all Rodrigues, Christopher Logan, and Barbara Van Villas. So with no more ado, this evening's forum will begin with opening statements from each individual candidate. And we will have time left in the agenda for questions from the public, we hope. If anyone here at Innovate Newport has a question for candidates, please submit it in writing to one of the volunteers who are here. And those of you viewing remotely, you can submit it via the chat function on the internet connection. Please direct your chat to the panelists. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, minute and a half, for their opening statements and for their closing statements. Response time for questions will also be 90 seconds if you choose to use the full allotted time. We have timers here in the front row, which will hold up a yellow card in signaling that there are 30 seconds remaining in your opportunity to address the issue. And when the red card comes up, that 90 minutes is done and you're supposed to stop, okay? And that your time will have elapsed once the red card goes up. And once that happens, I'll move on to the next candidate. Earlier this evening, when they arrived, the candidates drew numbers for the order they would present their opening statements and subsequently answer questions. The opening statements will be presented accordingly, and the first presenter on the opening statement is Mr. Dennis Turano. It's all yours, Dennis. Yeah, please feel free to bring those mics close to your mouth so that everyone can hear you. And the first act of compromise that you council people will have is to share 3 mics. And I think you'll be able to do that successfully.
Very good, very good. Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Involved Newport This Week, and the Greater Chamber of Commerce for entertaining us here at Innovate Newport. It's such a great facility, and I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to talk with you about why I'm running for council. My name is Dennis Turano. I'm asking for the 3rd term to be on the town council. For my 4th term. I've served 3 terms for 6 years, and I'm asking for another term. I want to thank the residents of Middletown and the voters for having trust in me over the last 6 years to help represent them and help Middletown be the place that we all know it is, a great place to live, and representing them. And I hope I've done a good job, and I'm asking for 2 more years. Again, my name is Dennis Turano. I'm a lifer for Middletown. I represent my family of 5 generations. My card's up already. So for 5 generations, I've been married for 35 years, raised my kids in Middletown. I went through the Middletown school systems. I'm a graduate of the University of Rhode Island. I work for a company in Rhode Island. I'm a businessman, been doing for 35 years. I've traveled the nation, I've traveled international, and I'm here to make Middletown what I know it to be when I was growing up here. I want to continue to keep it affordable. I want to work with the seniors. I want our children to be educated, and we need to keep it clean. So thank you very much, and I'm sure I'll have other things to say as we go along.
Thank you, Dennis. Our next presenter will be Emily Tessier.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Emily Tessier. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters in Newport this week, Involve Newport, Innovate Newport, and I think the Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce for having us. And again, thank you all for being here. And for those watching virtually, thank you as well. I would ask for your vote on November 8th. I have not been on the council yet, so I have been living in Middletown my entire life. My mom grew up here. My Viveiros moved here 60 years ago from the Azores, hasn't left. And I really care deeply about Middletown and our residents. I've been through the Middletown public school systems. I played softball here. I feel a really deep connection. And so I would really like to be a fresh voice for the community and represent younger generations. With that, I do care about a lot of issues here. Although it's such a beautiful place to live, I want to make sure we do keep it affordable, like Dennis said, to live here. And I do care deeply about our climate, transportation, and the environment. So I ask for your vote again on November 8th, and thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Emily. Our third individual to have an opening statement is Peter Connerton.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the organizer of the event for giving me the opportunity to speak today. As for why I want to run for Middletown Council, I'm doing it. A little background to me. My name is Peter Connerton. I'm married to my wife of 36 years. My bride, Mary Beth. Together, we raised 3 kids in Middletown. It was funny. One of the questions for the Daily News is, "Where's your hometown?" I answered Newport, but at this point in my life, at 57, Middletown is my hometown. My career has been in public service. I think that would aid me well on the town council. I understand the employees aspects of the job. I rose to the ranks of fire chief with the Newport Fire Department. It gives me the administrator's view on that. On occasion, I act as a city manager, and I do say act because I wouldn't want that job. But I'm really excited about it. And I think the big reason, like I said, is my career in public service, but my father also instilled public service in myself and a lot of my siblings. It's a bucket list item. It's something I really want to do. I think I can add to the quality of the council, and I just want you to know and consider me as an option for your vote. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Next presenter will be Paul Rodrigues.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us all tonight to listen to our views and potentially what our visions are. My name is Paul Rodrigues. I'm seeking re-election to the town council. I'm a lifetime Middletowner, 3rd generation. My Viveiros, Emily, also grew up here. So it brought back memories when you said that. I just feel that, my experience in town government, in leadership, and history. History is important. It's great to have fresh views. There's no doubt about it. But having history is important because things sometimes change so rapidly that you can turn back and say, well, this is how it really happened, or this is what brought us to this point. So for me, that's important. I love to help others. I love the town. Like I said, I grew up here. I'm the youngest of 9. And I just feel that my ability to work cohesively with my peers on any issue, whether we agree or respectfully disagree, that's important because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you run as, you work as a team, and that's important. And I think we've been able to demonstrate that. So I appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to hopefully being reelected and working with everybody in the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next, we have Theresa Santos, if you would.
Good evening, folks. I'd like to thank everyone who organized this thing, and thank you folks for coming. English is my 2nd language. I was born to immigrant parents. I flunked 1st grade. I had to repeat it, and the children in the second grade taught the first graders how to speak English. I've been on the council for a while. I worked for the town for 29 years. And I went to Raytheon and then back to the town again and worked for the town and then got on the council. My husband is deceased. I have 2 boys, one a very successful business person. And I'd like to continue working for the town. I was born in Middletown, as I say, and I've always lived in Middletown. I love Middletown. And I hope to work for you folks again and the townspeople. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Theresa. Next in line is Tom Welch, if you would.
Good evening. Thanks to everybody that made this happen. I ran for council last time, so my first term is ending. And thought I would be one and done, to be quite honest. But a number of things happened. One, I think that we are getting very close to getting some very important projects done in the town. I would like to see that continue. And I've also thought that the feeling between everybody is a little more contentious than it actually is. And I think we're getting along better, and it's a good group to be part of. So I'd like to give it another whirl. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next to present is Barbara Von Willis.
Okay, all right. Good on that, so, all right. Sorry about that. Well, thank you again. Like everybody said, we're delighted to be here. Some of you know that I've been in public education for 35 years here. And then now I'm at Roger Williams and been there for a substantial amount of time. So I'm an educator, professional educator with a lot of administrative experience. I've also been committed to the town for a long time, 18 years. I taught at the high school and 6 years on the school committee, and now I've been on the council for quite a long time. But I'd like to end by sharing with you and something that I heard actually on the TV about, I want to say 3 months ago, and it stuck with me, absolutely stuck with me. It was an interview with Drew Brees, the athletic person who was talking about Ellen DeGeneres, who was retiring. And they asked him if he was going to get back into the business. And he answered and he said, no. He said, there are 3 stages of life. 1, you master. Then you mentor. 3rd, you make a difference. That's what I want to do.
Thank you, Barbara. Last but not least, Antone Viveiros.
Well, first, I'd like to thank everyone who sponsored this event, especially you people for showing up. My name is Antone Viveiros. I moved into Middletown in 1995, and after watching my taxes increase $200 a year, I just started getting involved. And in 2004, well, first I ran for council, I ran for re-election, each election cycle. I was literally 6 years on council, but I'm chairman of the Island Watchdog Association. I spearheaded a petition, people's petition, so that any authorizing legislation that needed approval by the General Assembly could not go into effect until it was voted on by the people. I also worked in 2013 and 14 as chairman of the Seconded Toll Opposition Platform Committee to save the economy of Equipment Island and get the tolls off the Seconded Bridge. By working, we met just about every Tuesday of the week for 2 years, working with our legislators. We were finally able to get the tolls repealed in 2014. And I understand that the federal judge just ruled that the truck tolls were illegal. So you can bet they're going to start tolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Antone. We're now ready for the first question. To the tolls, each candidate you'll have 90 seconds to respond. And the yellow and red cards will do their work as well. The first question is, how does the current Middletown Center development, the plan for that, impact residents? Does it meet the economic and housing needs of the community, including but not limited to affordable and workplace housing? The monitor has the question up there, so I don't have to repeat it if you want to take a moment. The first gentleman up will be Tom Welch. That's your response.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I think the question's a little early on because we don't know exactly what the makeup of the housing is going to be yet. But I do know that there is going to be affordable housing. Right now, the proposal is 10%, which is 15 of the 150 units. So that is a number, but it's not the end number. And as far as the impact on the residents, we have heard about green space on the west side of the road, which is very important. But I think with the reconfiguration that we're looking at, it will have better access and use than it ever has. Waiting that, I can't wait to see the library be changed and the farmer's market go there, how it needs. That's all I got.
Thank you, John. Next to answer the question is Emily Tessier.
Thank you. So the current Middletown Center development plan, I've personally heard a lot of some concerns when I've been knocking door to door. We absolutely need more housing. I do think, yes, we do need to preserve green space. I know there's not as much over on the west end. I've heard concerns about traffic. I've heard concerns about the hotel being there. With that being said, we still do need housing. It will help a bit with the units that I don't think we have that exact number yet. However, we need to look at the big picture. We are in a housing crisis. So one town center is not going to address the housing needs, both affordable and workplace, that Middletown does need. I would like to see everyone who wants to live in Middletown be able to live in Middletown, and I would like to see, to make sure we have a tax base that supports our economy. So that, I think, is all I have to say about the town center.
Thank you, Emily. Next is Theresa Santos, if you would. You're number 3 to answer. It's a little confusing, but we're going to try to change the order with these questions so no one ends up being the first, no one ends up being the last. So for the first question, you're number 3.
Thank you, folks. I'll be honest with you, mixed up with this comments as it's been called by the residents. Some of them want to keep it as open space. The library has to be updated, a new one. But I would like to see that whole section left alone. We do need affordable housing, senior housing. That's gonna come down with the committee that has been formed. So think about it, folks. We're losing more open space, and many of our seniors, I've been told, do not like to drive on West Main Road to go to various places on West Main Road. So they'll stay away from anything that's going to be put in that area. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Theresa. Paul Rodrigues, please, next.
Thank you, Bob. So the first question, how's it gonna impact the residents? I mean, we're still looking at, some people think it's a done deal. It's really in its infancy stage. We have a conceptual plan. We have an agreement that's non-binding right now. We've selected the group that's the development group, which is a local group. There's still a lot of work to be done. There has to be a traffic impact study that could affect residents. So you know, you hear, well, it's done deal, you guys, it's not in the bag, it's in its infancy stage. We still have to work with the developers, and at this point, if we don't like what they propose, or if it doesn't work for them, then we both walk away from it. That's where we're at with it. So, does it meet, as it stands right now, as Tom said, it's a little bit early, economic needs and housing needs. Economically, I think we're gonna pick up like $1.5 million a year, which would help. The housing needs, we're just, Council Flynn and I just worked on something, we forwarded the zoning, planning board rather, about inclusionary zoning, when we got to really define housing, true affordable housing. Because the AMI index, 80% of the AMI is not affordable for people. So we really have to, we're trying to, we spoke to that planning board to get real affordable, you know, $1,000, $900, $800. People, the inflation is driving people out. So as far as workplace, we're working on a few things that you'd be surprised that are going to come out.
Thank you, Mr. Rodrigues. Next up in line would be Peter Connerton.
I have to kind of piggyback on Tom and Paul, that this is early in the process. So how exactly it's going to impact residents is kind of an unknown at this point. A lot of studies have got to be done, a traffic impact study, I believe there's also going to be a sewer impact study, and those kind of things. So I think that remains to be seen. As far as meeting the economic and housing needs, as President Rodrigues said, you're looking at about $1.5 million a year in lease money to the town. That's over 2% of the current budget. So that's not something to sneeze at. And as far as the housing, I think originally proposed 10 to 15 units. I know that at a council meeting, the council was asked to go and fight for more units, and I think that's what they're trying to do. Hopefully, you know, it's not going to solve the affordable housing problem, but hopefully it can exist. So I don't like on that.
Thank you, Peter. Next up is Antone Viveiros.
Thank you. The proposal that came up is nothing new. It first came up in 2011 when I was on the council, and then the thought was to be something like Thames Street in Newport. Commercial down below, residential above. And now we have this proposal. I talked to some of the neighbors in the area, and most of them are not very happy. My concern is when you start talking about money, the money isn't going to go to, well, I believe we ought to put the residents of Middletown first. I think that there's a lot that can be done, but to talk about affordable housing has been kicked around for a long, long time, and it's been bloviated. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it for years after year after year. Affordable housing becomes a problem when somebody is renting their property and all of a sudden their taxes go up $400 or $500. That's going to get passed on to the tenant. So I think the stabilization should be, I had proposed earlier, should be looked into where we get better control on the increase in taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Next is Dennis Turano.
Thank you. A lot of it's been said. I think Tom started off with saying it's early, but it's still moving along. We got to a point where we had preliminary drawings. We had a hotel in the area. We have a new library in the area. We have a common area. We do have open space. We're looking at biking in the area. And we have to start somewhere. And so we've got preliminary drawings. We actually went out for bid. We got some bids prior to COVID. COVID hit, project went on hold. When we came back from COVID, we only had one person who actually applied. So we said, we're going to go out to bid again, do our due diligence. We received 3 quotes. We selected one vendor, our contractor, and they give us some ideas based on what we had expressed that we'd like to see happen in that area. People were involved, public was involved. And then we got to a point where everyone thought it was, as Paul said, a done deal. But no, we got to a point where we needed to look at the financials. We needed to understand what the tax impact would be. It's not the same as Connecticut. So it has to take on a micro view, not just Middletown, tangibly and then intangibly. There are people who are doing, there are people who rent out rooms in residential areas, they live primarily. They do it to help offset taxes. Okay? Because they see it's an opportunity to get additional income. Move here and actually do short-term rentals, and buy a home and do short-term rentals. So we need to take a look at that as well. And we have Salbank that does rentals. We need to look at our rentals as a whole. It's not just the short term, but it's also the long term and the affordability. And what is the increase in taxes doing to our rental market? We have a house that's built for $3 million, and the rental properties right next door, that's Section 8, taxes go up 25%. What are they going to do? They're going to raise their rents. That's going to force the people out of their homes. It's all connected.
Thank you, Dennis. Next is Antone Viveiros.
This came up when I was on the council. My proposal many years ago. Flat fee, said $100 per room per year and a 3% tax. And adjust the zoning to combat the problem. Once you do that, and strict enforcement zoning, I find that in many cases, zoning is not forced to full letter of the law. So the first violation is a fine, it gets applied. Second violation is double. So somebody fine gets arrested. But this whole thing has been just, say, talked about for so many years instead of just taking the dog by the tail and actually doing something about it. Talking is fine, but I think it's time for a plan. Again, before the council, if you people elect me to the council, thank you.
Thank you, Antone. Emily Tessier next.
The two issues I see right now with short-term rentals is that one, they do tend to be a bother or a nuisance to the neighbors in residential areas, and two, it takes away housing of people who do want to buy, for example, their first home. So those are the two main issues I see with it. I can also understand that some people do want to make money to offset their taxes or pay bills. So with that being said, I do think it is a good idea to look at if we should tax short-term rentals as businesses, and also look at the tax code to see if there's ways we can increase taxes from part-time homes. If you can afford a second, a third, fourth home, you should be able to afford to pay more. I think that would prioritize people who only have one home that live here in Middletown. I'd also like to look at the root cause, like what is going on? Why are there so many short-term rentals right now? And I think we need more housing. We need more missing middle housing, so not just big, giant single-family homes. I'd like to see what other cities and towns have done that have been successful with this. So those are some of the things I'd like to look at to address this problem.
Thank you, Emily. Barbara Vondelis.
Yes, one of the problems that I see that we have as government officials is that we often try to solve the big problems all at once, and nothing happens. Nothing is resolved as a result of it. One of the things that a couple of other council persons and myself did within the last 6 months or so was set up. We did a series of meetings, committee meetings, and came up with a solution to a problem that had to do with short-term rentals, and it resolved that problem going forward. And it seems to me that a lot of things could be resolved that way, but this is such a big issue. Trying to resolve it
in one fell swoop. It's not gonna happen because you hear all the different aspects of it. There are too many. It needs to be dealt with piece by piece.
Thank you, Barbara. Peter Connerton next.
All right, this is not a topic I'm well versed at, but in looking at it, I think you have to weigh the rights of the property owner with their neighbors. That being said, it may sound simplistic, but communicating with your neighbors when there's problems goes a long way to solving those problems. And I think a lot of people have gotten away from that. I'm not against, fees for licensing for short-term rentals. But I think it's something you have to be very careful about. Because these are property owners, and as long as they're respectful of their neighbors and work within the town's ordinances, I think there's gonna be a way to make it work. And I want to jump on to what Mrs. Von Villa said is, you know what, it's not fix this one thing, it's done, it's fixed. It's, as problems come up, you address them. That's about all I have for you on that topic.
Thank you very much, Peter. Next is Theresa Santos.
Thank you, sir. I've been very much against some of this short-term rentals, but I've had a change of heart. Recently, a large house was sold next to me. A young man purchased it. His father used to be a Middletown fireman. Now he lives there and he rents the other half. He scrutinizes who he rents it to. I saw two gentlemen who had come up from West Virginia a couple of weeks ago. They were sitting outside smoking. He doesn't even let them smoke in the house. That's one case. That's a good case. We had a bad case a few weeks ago where young people were dancing on the porch of an old house, completely drunk. That is sad. Very, very sad. Apparently now the person who owns the property is renting to older folks. I shouldn't say older folks, excuse me, I shouldn't use that terminology, to other folks. But it has its pros and cons. There are many things that have to be looked at, but the one next door to me, I'm very proud of the young man. He's done a wonderful job. He's fixing the house so that he can live in it, half of it, and rent out the other half. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Theresa. Finally, Tom Welch.
Thank you. Actually wrote something down this time. This does bother me, short-term rentals. And the first part of the question says, is the registration paying a fee sufficient oversight of short-term rentals? And it is not, as we've seen, continue to get complaints throughout the summer. And so that's not the whole answer. Any future regulation to prevent proliferation, whatever that word is, of short-term rentals. And I am for that. I think we should look into what Newport has done, and we need to slow the saturation. So in other words, I think there should be a limit to the percentage of number of homes that can be short-term rentals in any area. The only way that we can find to tweak these zoning issues are with data collection, right? And that's a problem that we have. We're not collecting the data that's giving us the right information so that we can make good changes. So we got to work on that. Owner occupied is another thing that makes a big difference, whether someone is in the house.
Which is, do you support the school regionalization ballot question? And regardless of your answer, what steps would be taken or should be taken to ensure an amicable and productive relationship with Newport and improve the quality of education while balancing cost efficiencies? The first one on the list for this answer is Antone Viveiros.
Thank you. I've been dealing with visualization since 2009, when it first came up. The council back then put together committees. The committee invited, existing regional school districts to come. And one thing that they said was, if you're doing it to save money, don't bother. And that's all I hear, how this is gonna save money. And two, it doesn't help students. You're gonna take a district that's ranked 14th in the state and join it with a district that ranks 30th. And you're gonna tell people in Middletown that this is going to enhance the education of their children. Secondly, the money. The money that I figured is going to cost the town, on bond, $2.3 million payment per year for 20 years. Now, if this development goes through and we get the million that they're talking about from Connerton, that's going to offset it. But it's still going to be about a $1.3 million payment. And if your home is taxed at $400,000 and they raise the tax rate $1, that's a $400 increase in your taxes. And the council that loses their right to be able to close the district, no, we can't give you $1 million. We can only give you 500,000. That goes away. Thank you.
Thank you, Antone. Peter Connerton.
I thought about this for a long time and going over a lot of material, and I support this regionalization. Said it to a lot of people, it's put the cart before the horse, but it's a very pretty cart. And I know there's enough talented people in the community that we can make this work. I think if the regionalization should pass in November, I think the councils that are elected, the school committees that are elected, have got to be proactive. They've got to get together, start having discussions. They're going to put together the transitional teams and really start hammering a lot of these issues out so that when September 2024 comes around, we're ready to go. And we can do this. And I know we can do it. You know, sometimes having to work under pressure is better. We've got the time to do this. We've got a lot of capable and qualified people. And, as far as, cost efficiencies, we're going to see that in the administrations. We're going to see that with the new buildings. But those monies that are saved, and both councils, I believe, have or are in the process of dedicating those monies back to the schools in a large degree, are going to allow for new programming and other courses, having vocational, and that's a big thing I'm for. It's going to benefit the kids. Schools are about money, plain and simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next is Theresa Santos, please.
Oh, sorry, that's okay. Thank you, sir. I've spoken to a number of individuals. They feel there's still a great many questions that have to be answered. How is this going to better our students? That's one. What if the money's not there? How can taxpayers afford if the taxes go up? These are some of the questions that I've been hit with. And people, when they call, they're not very pleasant, I'll tell you that. We have to look deeper into this, and everybody's come up with answers, questions, and I appreciate what they're telling me. They're opening my eyes on many things. So I'll pass this information on to my folks, to the telephone callers who call me every day, so that they'll be aware of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Theresa. Emily Tessier, you're next.
I do support regionalization. It will free up money to allocate to our school system. It will increase and improve the programs that our kids will have. It will also go towards and fix our crumbling infrastructure of our school building that we do need. So that's why I do support it. I do think it will be a good decision. But I do want to know why we got into this situation in the first place. I think we need to make sure we're taking meticulous care of our buildings, so we don't need to keep building new buildings. Were our previous buildings taken care of properly in the first place? Do we have the funds for that? So those would be the main points I have about that. I'd also like to say, with the relationship with Newport, I think there needs to be lots of transparency, lots of meetings, communication, and just lots of meetings with both the community members and teachers, staff, so all of the above. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, but moving forward, there needs to be a lot of transparency.
Thank you, Emily. Dennis Turano, you're up next.
Thank you. This is definitely a hot topic. People are gonna have to make a decision in November. I just wanna make it clear, because I have talked to a lot of residents, and wanna make one thing clear, this is not unification. Unification was on the table several years ago. It was voted on by the people of Middletown and was not accepted. And it came back a few times. Unification was we were gonna combine the high schools, but Middletown would continue to run their elementary and middle school. Newport was going to continue running their middle school and the elementary school, and we would have had 3 school committees. I was not for this. And we then met with RIDE. We were made aware that we had other options. That if we regionalized, which would be 1 school committee, and we worked together, Middletown could build their schools and Newport could build their schools. And the majority of the kids who lived in Middletown will go to Middletown, and the majority of the folks who live in Newport will go to Newport. This is a base that we want to grow on. This is efficiencies. The state is offering us COVID money that if we don't take the money, they're going to give to someone else, and we're going to pay it back anyways. That you should look into these numbers. You go to the Middletown website, you will see that this financial decision is the best for the folks of Middletown and Newport.
Thank you, Dennis. Tom Welch, you're next.
Thank you. I absolutely support regionalization. I'm on the school building committee in Middletown. But I think one of the important parts of this question is Newport, our relationship with Newport. And you still hear a lot of bad feelings when I talk to Newporters, and I think that is unfortunate. I will just say that what we're all talking about when the Newport came to Middletown, and Middletown didn't treat them very nicely. The situation is different, and I'm going to say that for this reason. It was a different group of people. It was a different time. It was a different ask. Okay, I didn't particularly care for the way the council was running, and that's what forced me to run. There's a whole different dynamic that's going on now. What's on the table from the state is completely different than what you were looking at that time. So I just want to liken it to sports. The problem right now is with the parents, not with the kids.
Thank you, Tom. Barbara Von Dillis.
I want to pick up with what Tom ended with, and that is the fact that it's all about the kids, okay? Really doesn't matter what went before. I've been at this since 2011, and I should have bad feelings going down the line, disappointment all the way. But you know what? It doesn't matter. None of that matters. It's all about the kids. What does it matter with the money? Yes, the money is important, but you know what? We have to pass this before we can get to the point of where we're going to improve the education. It's all about education. It's all about the kids. But we can't get there if we don't pass the legislation, if we don't pass regionalization. So we need to take step 1 and do it right, and then everything will go better. Rome wasn't built in a day. We can't expect it to happen that way. But we have to remember that it's all about the kids. It's not about adults.
Thank you, Barbara. And last, and again, certainly not least, Paul.
Could you not stop the clock? She was my high school teacher, and that is her teacher voice. Okay. That's a fact. That's true. You can tell where her passion lies. right, you ready? Okay, thank you. So I took some notes. I'm gonna read them because there's so much. It's probably the biggest issue we'll face. I do support regionalization wholeheartedly. We work closely with the mayor and the vice chair, Lynn Seglia, or Segley. Two questions to ask yourself. I ask myself, what's it gonna cost? What are the educational benefits for the children? I have a child in school, high school, his sophomore. He goes to Rodrigues every day, right now. There was only one high school back in the day. My older sisters all went to Rodrigues. So, here's the facts. 3 new schools in Middletown, $235 million project with interest. It's a $400 million project over 20 years. The state says we'll give you 80.5%. That's 322 million of the 400 million they'll pay back. That's 79 million and change with interest all in to the taxpayers of Middletown over 20 years. 3 new buildings. Newport's 46 million on their current endeavor in their buildings. Thompson at some point for Newport residents will need to be replaced. My vision is eventually the regional school board will make one high school. The building for Thompson could eventually already be built. Who knows what that would cost? At that point, if they don't regionalize, they'll only get 50% or 52%. Not only will they leave 46 million, they'll probably leave another 50 million on the table or more down the road. So that's $100 million potentially. So I'm gonna stop, but this transportation, there's an endowment we put forward for the savings and all kinds of good stuff that we're gonna get to you and talk about.
Okay,
Can I
thank you.
keep going, please?
No, the red card got you.
All right.
We can move on to, question number 4. And that is in 2021, Governor McKee signed into law that Rhode Island will be 100% renewable by 2033. What initiatives would you propose to help Middletown implement and achieve this goal? First on the list, Barbara Pondelis.
Yes, several years back, a number of us got together and proposed wind turbines, and that didn't fly. They didn't like the looks of it. Certainly the thing that's most popular right now is solar. I have to tell you, I have solar on my house and I love it. And it saves me plenty of money. So that definitely is the way to go. I'm not sure about initiatives that we might have going at this point, but certainly the town council will be looking at those things because obviously it's important. We have discussed a couple of things in session having to do with ways that would save money, but at this point, I think we're still in the baby stage.
Thank you, Barbara. Tom Welch next, please.
Thank you. I'm certainly, I think solar, no problem. And I do have a problem with solar, maybe we can address this, is that the restrictions to put a panel that is not on your roof are very difficult to get around. And I would personally like to do that in town, in my own yard, but putting it in the middle is not what I had envisioned. So maybe we can look at that. Also, the wind turbine that Mr. Von Villas mentioned, there's a moratorium on that in Middletown now because we couldn't decide how to deal with it at the time. I'm not sure all of the particulars, but I'd like to investigate that because I was on that before the solar thing. Didn't do that either. And lastly, regionalization passes. We build new schools. We're looking at some of them are net zero. So solar panels on the roof, we orient the buildings right. I think the town should, show the way. So do that with other buildings.
Thank you. Peter, keep the microphone in your hand. You're next, Peter Connerton.
I think that's a pretty bold law to go for by 2033, but nothing's impossible. I would second what a lot of people have said. I think you have to utilize solar where you can, utilize wind. But I think it's going to be a process. Exactly how we get there, I don't know. But I know in the past that sometimes currently they are still doing it, offering incentives for the solar panels and things along that nature. It's got to become a household issue to get there. I would say, like I said, support green stuff, but we also have to understand with a lot of the green stuff, it still involves hydrocarbons, fuel, oil, you know what I mean? And there's other things to look at going forward. You know, a lot of the hybrid stuff is good, but that involves batteries, that involves disposable batteries later. So I think it's a very complex topic that really needs to be looked at seriously, and it's going to take time to get there. And I don't know exactly how we do it. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Connerton. Next up is Antone Viveiros.
Thank you. I was involved, I was like, also that in the wind turbine committee approved or recommended that we have wind turbines in residential areas, and after talking to people in Market that actually lived it, we voted against it. The noise, the flicker, it just did those. So now you can only have it in commercial agricultural areas. Renewable energy. You have an electric car, you can travel 400 miles. How many times do you have to stop if you're going to drive to Maryland, which is 6 hours away? Or to North Carolina, which is 15 hours away. And you don't have a grid to support it. You have California, they have thrown up blackouts because they found energy efficient and they don't have enough power. So, you know, what are you going to replace it with, first of all? You're gonna have an electrical system. I spent 40 years as a construction electrician. So you gotta have a plan before you go ahead and take a trip. And this reminds me of somebody that's gonna go on vacation, and as they drive out of the driveway, the husband turns around to the wife and says, "Okay, where are we going?" There's no mind result. You gotta have a plan. You gotta have a system in place in order to deal with it. And there's too many car fires, electric vehicles where battery has go.
Thank you, Antone. Emily Tessier, next.
So as many of us have said before, I think solar is a really great way to start implementing renewable energy. So maybe giving some sort of tax incentive to implement solar on your house. I think that would maybe be something to look at. But also I'd like to see other ways we can advocate for renewable and clean energy and easing climate change and making sure we take care of our environment. So when we think about that, what's one of the biggest contributors to climate change? Transportation, driving everywhere. Who here can walk to the grocery store or bike to the grocery store from their house in Middletown? Probably not a lot of us. I biked to Shaw's and there wasn't even a bike rack. So I would love to see a community where we do have safe bike lanes and places to walk, so we can walk to the store and go where we need to go, use our cars less. I think that would be a wonderful idea and a way to, one, keep us healthy, get us moving a little bit, and two, use our vehicles less. Those are humongous contributors to climate change. So more walkability, bikeability, and safer, cleaner transportation in that way.
Thank you, Emily. Theresa Santos, next.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to be looking at solar being put on my home at the present time. I've lived in my home since 1953. So I think now I'm going to be seriously looking at it and to save on my electricity. I have to throw this out. We do have a beautiful 8-vane windmill on Paradise Park. I wish it would work. It would help save electricity to the Middletown Historical Society. But we're going to be looking at this renewed by 2013, 11 years from now. Well, I wish everybody who's around in 2013 the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Theresa. The next up is Paul Rodrigues.
Oh, sorry. You'll be around in 2033. So as others have talked about, the wind turbine initiative and, the noise, the health issues and the aesthetic issues associated with that, it was a good idea initially. I think somebody's still proposing something off Second Beach, off that way, that looks terrible. That should not happen, but solar's the way to go. Exploring different ordinances as solar evolves. As Tom said, the guy across the street from my mom's years ago, he was way ahead of the curve. He built one in his yard till this day. He's an engineer, he did it himself, it works great. Aesthetically, that's another story that needs to be addressed, but tax incentives, I think, are the way to go. That need to be re-energized from the federal level and from the state level, so that it can be passed down to the residents of not just Middletown, but Rhode Island, so that you get more people on solar. I think the government initiative with electric cars is a good one, but there's also repercussions to that, maybe unintended with these batteries. I have a hybrid, because I travel for work and I get about 50 miles a gallon right now. It helps with gas, but also you've seen a lot of increase of electric bikes this summer. And that could really reduce, that may be another initiative that can reduce vehicle use to help with our environment. So, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Last, and again, certainly not least, Dennis Turano.
Thank you. Great question. It's definitely something that, again, it's at the top of the charts nationwide in regards to renewables. Middletown, we have talked about it. My personal feeling is solar is cleaner in regards to the look, the impact that it has on the town. I'm hoping that the technology gets better when it comes to wind. I live on Easton's Point and there's nothing but wind, so if we could get something that I put on the side of my home that could generate some energy, I'd like to use that. I think it's going to be a combination of different resources that we're going to need to have. We can't just put all our eggs in one. Gas companies and electric companies. How it's get there.
Thank you, Dennis. This completes the responses to the questions that were prepared by the committee. However, in the meanwhile, there have been some questions submitted by the public in attendance today. We have 3 of them. We're reading the order that they received, but ask you to respond accordingly. The first one was, what will happen in Middletown if the school regionalization does not pass? Theresa, you've been honored to be the first one on this one.
It's gonna cost taxpayers some money to schools that need fixing. Some of them are in dire need to be repaired. I know that the Little Elmwood is no longer being used as a school for students, but take a look. Totally unappropriate. The town took upon itself to have a payment. It's gonna cost taxpayers because we're gonna have to get money to fix our schools. Some of them are in bad shape. And I hate to say that. I went to school in many of the Middletown schools, and they were in good condition. They were kept up at that time. But now they're no longer being kept, and I don't know why. I can't answer that question, but it's gonna cost us. It's gonna cost the seniors and everyone else living in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Theresa. In this round, you'll have 1 minute to respond. So next up is Mr. Welch, Tom Welch.
Thank you. Again, School Building Committee. There is no viable or good second answer here, no plan B. We are fiscally, like Mr. Santos said, the taxpayer, it is not going to be pretty. We are going to pay more. The first proposal at 90 million was the Band-Aid on high school and middle school. And we will pay that money and then some again to address the elementary schools. And we won't have time, that the bond won't even be paid off by the time we're looking to try to borrow money again. And the whole time that we're doing that, we're trying to limp along the schools that didn't get touched the first time. It's not good.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Paul Rodrigues is next.
Thank you, Bob. So what will happen, exactly what Tom and Mrs. Santos said, a lot more cost to the taxpayer. That's what's gonna happen. The other option is, like Tom said, we did have the $90 million option. But, again, the majority of that was going to the high school. The next most amount was going to the middle school, and very little was going to the elementary school. So whatever council will sit here in 5 years or so, we'll have to come back and ask probably for another 100 million or more to be able to do this. So if this, hopefully this passes, because everyone says you're chasing the dollar. Yeah, we are, because that's what it takes to get it done for the taxpayers and for the infrastructure. Now, one community that I can think of can sustain the infrastructure improvements going forward. Not one. These schools are almost 65, 70 years old. Why not do it together? And that's what it's going to take. So.
Okay, thank you. Next, McDonald's teacher, Barbara Bonvillas.
When I left Middletown High School in 1989, there were 1,259 kids in Middletown at the high school, as well as in Newport. There are now less than that, if you put the two schools together. There are a little over 600 in both schools. This is, I don't care about the money. I mean, I care about it as far as what everybody has said. But from my perspective, the long-range view is it's about the kids. We have to do something to get better education for the kids, and we can do better together.
Thank you, Barbara. Antone Viveiros.
Like I said earlier, I've been researching regionalization, and I can show you research. I'm not talking about myself, my experience. I'm talking about research. Smaller schools are better. We have more where teachers and children interact better. A teacher can spend more time with students that are having a problem. It shows that when you take especially a child that's shy, take him and put him into a school with 1,000, 1,200 children, he's going to feel, he's going to shy away and he's going to have problems. So they talk about education. Let them do the research. Let them show you the education when you show that benefits the kids. I can show you where it doesn't.
Hold on to the mic, Dennis, you're next.
Okay, thank you. I'm not gonna repeat everybody up here, but financially, it makes sense to regionalize financially. You can go online and take a look at this. That's a piece of the puzzle. The bigger piece of the puzzle is the education. I have to believe, and that what I've seen is the ability for us to build our schools in Middletown and Newport to build their schools and have one regional school district with one regional financial committee working together to better our systems. We can offer more trades. We can offer community center. One of the things I'd like to see when we build a school is create a community center next door. So during the evening, we can teach the residents of Middletown and Newport, or whoever wants to, how to speak English, how to balance a checkbook, how to locate things they need in the community. This building doesn't just need to be a school. We need to be able to multi-purpose the school, and I'd like to see that we do create a community center so we can not only use it for education, but we can use it for the residents of Middletown.
Thank you, Dennis. Peter Connerton.
Thank you. I'm going to second what everyone's been saying. It's not going to be a pretty picture. Probably the biggest thing in the whole picture is there is not going to be money to enhance student programming classes for kids. There is no plan B, as Tom says. what they're gonna do with facilities. They're gonna whip along with that, they're gonna bury money into that, and the annual budget woes for the school department are gonna continue, because they're gonna try and do their best. But their best, for our Middletown kids, I don't think it's good. So I really support regionalization. I think it's the way to go. It can be figured out. There's plenty of people in the community to make this happen.
Thank you. And finally, again, last but not least, Emily Tessier.
So as all of my colleagues have just said, if this doesn't pass, Plan B is we're still gonna have to pay for it anyway because our infrastructure is crumbling and the kids do deserve really nice buildings and better education. And to address Antone's issue or concern, as it's written, we're not going to combine Newport and Middletown together into one high school as it's written. So it would still be the smaller class sizes. I like the idea of the community center too. I think that's great. I think our town should even hire something like a project manager to write grants so we can have more social programs and things like that, so we can offer more at these new schools. But in the end, I agree, it's for the kids, for our students, they deserve the best.
Thank you very much. We now have a second question, which I'll read to you. It's received from the public. These are anonymously received. The state mandates each community have 10% of housing to be affordable. Middletown has approximately 5% affordable housing, while Newport is at 17%. What next development projects would help increase that percentage, right? I guess in reference to Middletown. The first one was the last one to speak, Emily Tessier.
So that last part was what would we do to increase that?
What next development projects would help increase the percentage?
Yes. So I'm not sure what the current town council has on the docket. Of course, we've been told there are other projects coming, which is great. I also think we need to look at, again, we are in a housing crisis, and why is that? What are the main reasons why we do not have enough housing? Because part of it is supply and demand. In our nation, it's not just Middletown, we don't have enough. Why don't we have enough? It's complicated, but one of the issues is our nation, we have zoning ordinances that are very strict and only allow pretty much big single-family homes to be built. So I really think we should look at our zoning ordinances and change them so we can allow what's called missing middle housing, which is more types of housing than just single-family homes. I'm not talking skyscrapers, but allowing people to build more than just a big giant home that takes up a lot of space and only houses one or a couple people. And I think that would lower the cost of housing.
Thank you, Emily. Paul Rodrigues next.
Thank you, Bob. So currently the town has about 4 or 5 projects that could help. We're told we're about 320 units short of the 10%. And we took the approach of we don't want to get caught up on the percentage. We want to get caught up on what the actual need is for the community as far as housing, whether it's young family housing. There's different aspects of housing. There's workforce housing, and then there's senior housing. And we're working on all 3 of those. One of them, which is really cool, it's an executive session now, I can't talk about it, but we are negotiating with somebody that we can potentially build 19 units on our own, which is actual houses, which is pretty cool. The next thing is inclusionary zoning. I mentioned it earlier. True affordable housing, we need to address that. Short-term rentals, we need to address that because I do believe that takes up some of the housing market. And auxiliary units, Emily touched on it a little bit. And if I weren't able to put a smaller house in my backyard, I should be able to do that for housing facility.
Thank you, Paul. Dennis, keep the mic right in your hand. You're next.
Great. Thank you, and Paul, thank you for mentioning all the locations that we have. I've actually been the chairman of the Affordable Housing Committee for the last 6 years. And talk about government speed. I'm embarrassed to say we haven't broken ground yet, but it takes time and it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we were behind and we're gonna catch up. And as Paul said, we have a number of units that are gonna be coming up this year. It's one of the reasons I'm running again. The work's not done. We need to push this over the goalpost. But one of the things that I've also been sharing is tax reform. Letting people age in place. Seniors shouldn't have to leave their homes because they can't afford to live there any longer. Young families shouldn't be pressured because someone moved in next door and built a $3 million home and increased their taxes. We need to work on keeping our residents in their homes longer. Realtors aren't going to like that, but the fact is, we need to get predictability of what your taxes are going to be over your home in your residency. Right now, you cannot predict your taxes because your taxes are based on who moves in next door.
Thank you, Dennis. Next, Mr. Welch, Tom.
Thank you. So trying not to reiterate everybody else, one thing I'd just like to throw out there so everybody knows. We keep hearing that Middletown is at 5%, and that is a true number. Unfortunately, Oxbow, which has 302 units, is done with their HUD funding, so they were able to go back up to market rate, and that took the rug right out from under us. So it's interesting, Paul said 320 units were behind, and 302 of them are sitting in Oxbow. So that doesn't excuse it. We still have to work on it, and we are West Main, Oliphant, Berkeley, and some we can't mention. So we're picking away at it. Not huge chunks, but there's not a whole lot of land left. So it is a priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Peter, you have the mic.
Sure.
Peter Connerton.
Like Tom said, I'm not going to repeat everything everybody else said. And I think that, listening to the council, speaking to some of the council members, I know they have stuff in the works. One of the things is regionalization passes. I believe they'll look at the Oliphant property for some kind of housing. I believe they're also looking at Berkeley Peckham for senior or 55 plus housing, something along those lines. And basically, you're just going to grab whatever opportunity you can. I think for a municipality, it can be very tough. I don't think most municipalities are in business of providing housing. So coming up with creative ideas on how to get there is the crux of the matter. And going back to the beginning thing of it all is what is affordable housing? This workplace, when I think of affordable housing, it goes back to when my parents started out at Park Home. You know what I mean? You paid 30 or 33% of your salary, whatever it was, whether you made $50 a week or $100 a week. Of course, that involves the federal government. All right, there we go.
Thank you, Peter. Next in line, Barbara Bonvellis.
Yes, one of the things that came up recently at a meeting I was at was the fact that there are places that where the businesses, large businesses, are able actually to provide housing for their people. It's an incentive. The housing is an incentive. I think that's something we need to look at. Two things. There's two parts of that: economic development to bring in people that have money enough to do that. And then partially to talk about the fact that they might be able to provide housing for their people so they'll have employees.
Thank you, Barbara. Antone, if you would.
Just let me say, if anybody wants to stay after I can and discuss anything with me, I'd be willing to stay. But what Dennis said as far as, I agree with him. But in 2018, I got a proposal that would do exactly what he said. If your neighbor sold his house for 3 times what it's worth, come revaluation time, yours wouldn't go up. There was a 2% cap on it, on any increases, with a exemption for up to 3%. Do that. So I don't have much time to explain it, but there was a proposal. I put a proposal in as a resolution to do so by the president of the council back then, and it was rejected. So In many cases, they get nobody to blame but themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Antone. Next, and last but certainly not least, is Theresa Santos.
Thank you, sir. If you, any of you folks out there know where I live on Morrison Avenue, I used to look across the street to an open field that had cattle, sheep, horses. Now I'm looking at, and I've been told anywhere from $1.4 million houses to 1.2. It's scary. What's it going to do to my taxes? I've lived there, as I've mentioned, quite a number of years. There are 6 homes that are going to be built in that field, as I called it. And right now, they've got 2 that are almost complete. The third one is a 3-story home that, if it's purchased by folks, I hope they have elevators installed in this home. Thank you.
Thank you, Theresa. I believe we now have one other question that came in, and I'd like to present it to the panel. It goes, why isn't the Middletown Town Center development on the ballot? Shouldn't the residents be deciding on this issue? First off would be Mr. Welch, Tom.
That's actually an easy answer because the RFI that went out specifically stated the process. It had nothing to do with putting the question on the ballot. Therefore, to continue on the way that we have done it legally, I know our solicitor has told us all this in more than one meeting. We cannot put it on the ballot.
Emily Tessier, please.
I'll have to agree with Tom. I don't want to repeat everything he said, but pretty much our town solicitor has informed us that we simply can't put this sort of question on the ballot. And so I think it's so important, if you do have an opinion or want your voice heard, show up to town council meetings, to zoning, to planning board meetings. I believe there's also a focus group for the town center as well, as far as how it's going to look at the outside of it, not so much the units. So that's a great way to at least let your voice be heard. And as our colleagues have said here, it's in its very early stages. It's not a done deal. And so now's the time to definitely share your opinion with the council.
Thank you. Next would be Theresa Santos, please.
It's all been said, but unfortunately, it's not going on the ballot as many people wanted it on the ballot, but as our town solicitor made known to us that because of certain rules and regulations, it's not going to be put on the ballot. Everybody has mentioned what the reason was, and I'm not going to reiterate. Take up my ballot.
Paul, you're going to have to save Theresa. You're up next.
My pleasure. So, so this didn't require enabling legislation. That's why it doesn't need to go on the ballot. Could it go on the ballot? The solicitor says no. But do people want it? Some people want it on the ballot that are opposed to it. Sure they do. The sticking point is the hotel. That's the issue. Otherwise, you know, we're working through that with the developers, hopefully. And again, it's not binding. We can walk away from it, but to answer the question, it didn't require enabling legislation, so it didn't have to be placed on the ballot.
Thank you, Paul. Antone Viveiros, please.
Well, it did require enabling legislation, but if the council has sent the request up to the Secretary of State's office 90 days before the election, it would have been put on the ballot. Now, Terry Flynn recommended that this be done, and I spoke before the council and recommended and supported it, but they decided they weren't going to do it. So it's not enabling legislation, which needs General Assembly approval, but you can put anything you want on the ballot as long as you send it up to the Secretary of State's office 90 days before the election. So that's not so.
Thank you, Antone. Dennis Turano, number 6.
Okay, thank you. Issues of this size, getting out of the council, again, I had no government background. I thought, well, let's just let the citizens make the decision on this, one of my ways of backing out is not having to make the decision. But this piece of property is unique to Middletown. It's going through, acquisitions over time, different plans. To actually get a complete message out for a vote, I think would be very difficult. I gotta be honest, I have not heard a lot of negative things about the development of this. It's just, what is it gonna be is what we're hearing the issue to be. And we've formed a committee to talk about it. The town council has talked about it. We've had drawings, and we're gonna get there. We're gonna see what the budget is, what the financial impact is. It's gonna be, the hotel in the area is the rub. But you can't have a contract to develop it if they can't make revenue. So we have to see, what would it look like without a hotel there, and what would the revenue and the financial impact be? And that's what we're trying to get. And stay involved, come to the meetings, keep voicing your opinion.
Thank you, Dennis. Next, Barbara Von Willis, please.
Well, I would just reiterate what Paul said about the lack of necessity for enabling legislation and the fact that we are already along in the planning process. We have an agreement or a tentative preliminary agreement with the developers, and we're working on something, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's a legal kind of thing as we're already involved in. So as the solicitor has said to us, we cannot change the way now, and we're just going forward.
Thank you. And finally, last again, but not least, Peter Connerton.
Yeah, what they said. No. And to a large degree, yes, what they said, but I would also like to say that, when you elect your town officials, they're supposed to be active and looking out for your best interests. As they've all said, this has been a process. You should be reaching out to your council members if you're not happy about something, or if you want answers. That's the way to go about it in this situation, I feel. And if you don't feel you're being represented, then you know what you can do. You know what I mean? But I do feel you let your town officials making these kind of decisions.
Lynn Tongan, if I might reach out for your guidance, do we have time for one other quick question, or should we go to the closing argument? Okay. Yeah, very good. Thank you so much to all the participants. This concludes tonight's candidate forum, such as it is. And on behalf of the host organizations, Newport This Week, Involve Newport, League of Women Voters of Newport County, and the Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce. Those are the individual entities that have put this together.
Closing statements. They
Yep.
should be allowed for closing statements.
Yep, and we will now ask that each individual have a closing statement, and that would be for 90 seconds. Okay? At this time, we'd like to give you an opportunity to issue closing statements. You have 90 seconds to leave the constituents with your final thoughts on your candidacy for the Middletown Town Council. And we'll begin with Peter Connerton.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody again for organizing this and providing me with the opportunity to be here, these other people, present my opinions, my viewpoints on issues. And I'm looking for your support on November 8th. I promise you, if you vote for me, I am going to look out for the best interests of Middletown. And put that's going to be the mainstay, is looking out for Middletown and what it needs. I've had a career in public service, love being a public servant. I'm a proud public servant. I'm not ashamed to say that. I don't think there's any way to call public service. And as I said before, it's kind of a bucket list thing. I'm looking to get on the Middletown Council and serve and do your bidding and hopefully do right by you. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Barbara Von Willis, please.
I'm gonna finish pretty much with what I started with, and that is the fact that, I have spent most of my adult life, aside from my family, obviously, but most of my adult life, committed to making things better for other people, and that's what I would like to continue to do as long as I'm able.
Thank you very much. Dennis Turano, if you would.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank everyone for the folks that pulled this together and the people who came this evening. This has really been different than what I thought it was going to be. I really enjoyed this. It gives us an opportunity to educate the folks to vote. You know, vote for what's getting done, not a political side, Democrat, Republican, Independent. Vote for who is going to stand up and represent the values of what you want Middletown to look like and to be. Again, I got into politics 6 years ago, and everyone thought I was crazy because I didn't have any experience. I have learned a lot, and we have things to get done. I'm running again because our work is not done. We are close. We have an opportunity to put Middletown up several notches for housing, for affordability, for education, for a strong infrastructure, for the ability to have predictability of where you live and to be proud of where you live and make sure that we keep it clean, energy efficient, and it can't just be one thing. We can't focus on one thing and let three things fall apart. We need to focus on everything and allocate the right resources at the right time. And right now, our children need us. They're falling behind, and we need to support them in a big way. So thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. And next, Antone Viveiros, please.
First, I'd like to thank all the organizations involved with this forum together, and most important, you people for coming out. My only disappointment in this is that all the seats weren't filled. I just feel that more people in Middletown should take the bull by the horn and get involved and find out what's going on. I tried to schedule meetings over at the Sonata, and I'm sitting there by myself most of the time. Until something affects them personally, then you hear from them. Other than that, I don't know if they read the paper, what's going on. A lot of the things are on the YouTube. You can find out a lot. I just wish that more people would get involved and understand what's going on, because this is your life and the life of your children. Your children can't afford to live here. When you leave them your home, then all those years and the hard work that you did is wasted. So I'm just, if elected, my main goal will be to do what's best with the people of this town, the town as a whole, and to keep it as an enjoyable place, not let it get over developed, and so that there's finally there's no more. We want to try to keep it some green spaces for our kids, and our kids are important. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Rodrigues next, please.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone, for having us tonight and listening to our views to help you make an informed decision come November 8th. The reason I'm asking for your support again is because there's a lot to accomplish. A lot of big issues. We've never had this many big issues in Middletown before. We have affordable housing. We have regionalization.